Hello, this is Julie and thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel today. I'm creating this layout as part of my design team work for Mystical Scrapbooks. The July challenge, or this particular challenge, is to use a black mat on all of your pattern papers. I'm starting with white cardstock for my background and I'm adding a coat of transparent gesso. Now I'm doing this because I want to add some liquid mediums to my background, and the gesso stops the cardstock from buckling as much, but it also moves the liquid mediums around more freely. I'll then set this aside to dry naturally. So I'm going to start by applying some of this Montmartre modelling paste through this stencil. It's a Colour Blast stencil and it's called Honey Hive, Love and Grace. And I'm just going to use my palette knife and put a strip of that texture paste sort of through the middle of my layout. But I didn't take it all the way over to the left-hand edge, but I did take it basically to the right-hand edge. Once again, I let that dry naturally. I trimmed my photo down so that it was 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. I filed around the edge of it using an emery board and then matted it on a piece of black cardstock that was 4 inches by 6 inches. Now I'm going to start cutting my pattern papers. The papers I'm using for this layout are from Coco Vanilla's These Days paper range. This first paper, the apricot coloured one, is called Wall of Fame, and the green one is called Family Ties. I'm going to cut a piece of Wall of Fame 5 inches by 6 inches, and then a piece of black cardstock 5 1/4 inches by 6 1/4 inches to mat that piece on. Then I'm going to cut a piece of Family Ties 5 3/4 by 4 1/2, and the black matte piece for that will be 6 inches by 4 3/4. Time now to use my black Versacolour ink cube to ink around the edge of the pattern papers. I don't worry about inking around the edges of the black because that is a solid black cardstock and shows no white edge, so I won't worry about doing those. If you have seen many of my videos, you will know that this is a standard thing for me. Just about everything I make has the edges inked. I used double-sided tape to attach the pattern papers to their black mats. You could use liquid glue as well. I don't know why, but I tend to use double-sided tape on my scrapbooking layouts. Now I'm going to use those same papers, so I'm going to cut some pennants, fishtail pennants here. So I'm going to, with the Family Ties, I'm going to use the stripe side of it this time though. I'm going to cut a piece 1 1/2 inches by 3 inches. The other paper I'm using is Take Flight, that's got butterflies on one side and Spot on the other. I'm going to use the spotty side, and I'm going to cut that to the same size, 1 1/2 by 3. And then I'm going to use some Homegrown, and I'm going to cut a small one from that, 3/4 inch by 2 inches. Now I'm going to use my ruler and a pencil to mark the centres on the narrow ends of what's going to be my fishtail pennant. So I'm going to measure up and find the centre and then use my scissors to cut from the corner to that central point. I measure up about 1/2 inch on each one of those. Once again, I ink the edges of these pattern papers with my black ink cube. Now I'm going to mat my pennants on the black cardstock. I'm going to make them flush at the top because you probably won't see the top of them. And I find the easiest way to get these to look like they're matted properly is to attach the pennant to the black cardstock, leaving the amount of border that you want to have on one edge of your pennant. Then I trim it down, trim down the other side, so give the other side exactly the same border, but keep going past the end of the pennant by a good probably 1/2 inch. Then I'll trim that off to about 1/2 inch, as I said. Then I'll use my scissors to cut up into the point so that I've got an even border all the way around. It's very hard to try and do that by cutting your black cardstock to size first, so I found this the best way for me. So that's what I'm going to do for each of these pennants. Now I have all of my elements matted on black. My background is dry now, so I'm going to start with my liquids. I'm using this glimmer mist, it's called Lily Pad, and I'm going to use a quite thick brush that I've dipped in water to add that colour in amongst my modelling paste. I'm just going to play around with this until I get it to look how I want it to look. I added just a layer of water first, and now that's going to help my colour move around. I'll add extra water and more colour as I feel it needs it, and I want some runs to go down the page, so I will encourage some of those with a bit of extra water and a bit of extra colour to make that run down. Because I've got the gesso on the back, and if I'm quick enough, if some of this liquid goes where I don't want it to, I can wipe it off with a baby wipe. I use the same technique to add a little bit of the glimmer mist in the colour Dewdrop, which is a sort of a silvery colour. I haven't added a lot of that because I use this mainly because I just wanted to get that extra sparkle. I also added a few splatters to the background of both the Lily Pad and the Dewdrop. The colour wasn't exactly what I wanted, so I used some of the Dylusion Slate Grey ink spray, and I started off just using the dropper, but I ended up moving to a fine brush. I didn't want too much of this colour in there. I just wanted a bit of it to tone things down and add a bit more dimension with another colour. When all of my colours were dry, I trimmed that background piece down to 11.5 inches square, and I'm going to attach that to a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock in black so that I get that black border around my page. As part of my embellishments, I'm going to use this Memory Maze Pickup Sticks frame square. I've used half of it on another project, and you can see I've painted it silver, but I don't want silver on this layout, so I'm going over it with some black acrylic paint. I'm not worried about getting a solid black colour here. I don't mind if a bit of that silver shows through, but I didn't want it completely silver. So I'm going to give that a light coat and then set that aside to dry. I wanted my photo to stand up off of my page, so I've got a piece of scrap cardboard here, a bit of old packing box that I've trimmed down, and I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach that to the back of my photo. Now that all of my elements are ready, I'm going to start to assemble my layout. Now, as I work through this, I'll use my art glitter glue mostly to stick everything into place, but you'll notice that in several places I'll need to add some of that scrap cardboard to the back of some of these elements so that they sit flush. Because the chipboard is underneath, it will put my papers on a bit of an angle if I don't sort of boost them up with the cardboard. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just playing around with placement, deciding where to place everything, because I had a rough idea, but nothing set in stone, if you know what I mean. So I play around, I'll put my pieces where I think they might like to go. When I'm happy with them, I will stick them in place. Okay, while you're watching that, it will be on fast forward, so you don't have to sit through the whole long process. But I just wanted to say thank you for watching my video today. I love posting my videos to YouTube. I video most of the projects that I create. If it's going to be a really long video, like if I'm making a journal or something like that, I don't generally video and post that. But making cards and making scrapbooking pages and art journal flip-throughs I'll do, or art journal pages, or if I just make something for a journal, those sorts of things. I have got a flip-through, I think, of a little golden book journal that I made. So yeah, I've got lots of different types of paper craft on my YouTube channel, so if you've got other interests besides scrapbooking, you might want to check them out. In the description box below, I'll put a link to all of the products that I've used, and I'll also put a link to my playlists. So in each playlist you'll be able to see what's in there. One's called scrapbooking, one's called cards, blah blah blah. So pretty easy to understand. So if you're interested in watching any of my other videos, just check in the description box below. You might have to click on the More button. It's just on the right hand top edge of the description box to get all of the details. So back to my layout now. I had a packet of the wooden buttons, so I decided to use some of those to embellish my layout. I've chosen 3 and I'm going to attach those sort of at the bottom, well actually at the bottom of the photo. So I was pretty happy with how my layout was looking at the moment, but it just looked a little bit too plain. I'm all for plain these days. I really like the nice, clean, simple look, but I decided to go with fussy cutting some of the butterflies from the Take Flight pattern paper. Now I cut 5, I think, in the end. I ended up cutting 5 butterflies, but I cut 10 and I layered one on top of the other. So I cut 2 blue ones, 2 green ones, blah blah blah, and stuck one on top of the other. Now they're on that sheet, they've got all different sizes and styles of butterflies, so I tried to make sure that I cut one that was larger and one that was smaller, and the smaller one went on top of the larger one. So I've just stuck them in the middle, like on the body section of the butterfly, with the liquid glue. Of course, I inked around the edge of each of those butterflies with black ink cube. Once I had my butterflies assembled, I attached them to my page so that they were sort of flying diagonally across the page from the bottom left to the top right. I used my Sizzix 662667 alphabet die to cut out my granddaughter's name. I have positioned that onto a piece of removable tape so that I can get it nice and straight, and it makes it very much easier to handle. And now I'm going to apply the liquid glue to the back of the letters and then use that double-sided tape, or that removable tape, to position this, get it in place, and then I'll peel that repositionable tape off. You can use this tape, or you could use the mint tape. Any sort of repositionable tape will do the same job. I actually used my ruler to line it up, make sure I had it nice and straight, and now I can position it onto that top pennant, very easy to put into place. The die also cuts a little heart, so I'm just playing around with where I would like to put that. I decide that I'm going to put it up there next to her name, so once again I'll use my liquid glue to attach that heart. So just a couple of finishing touches. I'm going to use some of these Nuvo vintage drops. This colour's called Peachy Keen. And I'm going to put 3 little sets of 3 dots around my layout, and then I'm going to take my Dimensional Magic, or some people say Glossy Accents, whichever you like to call it, and I'm going to give the little black heart and the title a coat of that. Now this goes on milky colour, but once it's dry it's beautiful and clear and very glossy, and it's sort of textured. It's sort of got a nice smooth domed feel to it. So that will finish off my layout for today. pop over to Mystical Scrapbooks. I will put a link to their challenge in the description box below, so you can pop over. There will be 2 different challenges. So this one says to add a black border to all of your pattern papers, and you'll find the other one over on their website. Okay, well, thank you for being here with me today. I hope you've enjoyed my video. If you give me a like, that would be great. Thumbs up. Yeah, so thanks again, and I hope you can join me when I post my next video. Bye.